Hello everybody, this is Rosalind from the Conscious CEO Experience. Welcome to another edition of Facebook Live Friday. It is the month of April still, and we are on the theme of leadership, power, and influence. And just want to apologize for the delay in the Facebook Live today. Usually we do it at 12 noon. Today I'm on the road, and I thought I'd make it back to the office by now, but there was so much traffic that I had to pull over and just do it right in the car. I've seen people do videos, whether live or recorded videos, in their cars, and I always thought, why do they do that? Why do they do the videos while they're driving? And it doesn't seem safe. It seems kind of dangerous and kind of risky. And I never thought I'd be doing a Facebook Live in my vehicle. But just how it goes. So it's the first time for everything, and here I am doing a Facebook Live in my car. I've got I don't know if you can see, I've got a hummingbird. It's kind of my only ornament in my car. I actually got this hummingbird in Mexico. I was there this spring doing some training in shamanic medicine as well as a personal retreat. So I'm glad my little hummingbird can join us in this Facebook Live today. And today, so interesting. I happen to be wearing red, and when I tuned into what I want to speak to today, this topic came up of anger and how to navigate anger as we're in leadership, as we're running our businesses, as we're the CEOs, or however leadership position you're in, whether it's your own business or it's in your job. And anger is one of those inevitable emotions that come up while we're in leadership and while we're trying to grow our businesses, and really emotions in general. Emotional intelligence is all this buzzword in the leadership development, team building, sort of management training books, probably places like Harvard and Harvard Business School and various sort of think tanks in leadership talk about emotional intelligence, how important it is to really be in tune with how we're feeling as we're working, as we're leading, as we're trying to actualize our visions, and how key it is to not just focus on positive psychology and there's so much now. I mean, we're so fortunate. There's so much thought leaders and teachers and even gurus on consciousness and how to live a conscious life, how to birth and grow a conscious business, how to be more heart-centered in business, how to just be more mindful in general in the workplace. And I find that there's not a whole lot of discussion or really reckoning in some of the darker emotions, some of the more negative emotions, and some of the emotions that still come up, but maybe we are not used to talking about them. Maybe they're a little bit taboo. Maybe they're not considered appropriate to express or even feel in the workplace or as leaders. And I want to speak today of the emotion of anger and how it can be such a potent and powerful medicine to not only help us tune in to our truth, but also to inspire and really catalyze some change in ourselves and in our organizations. And so I want to speak to the 5 reasons that anger come up, generally speaking. And I'm sure as you're listening to these reasons that you can relate to 1 or 2 or a few, or maybe even all of them. I'm sure this has come up for you. And so as I'm listing the reasons and sharing about how to recognize them and how to work with them, how to do your own inner process around them, just think back to a time when you felt angry, you felt it sort of well up from deep inside your belly, and like the heat that comes with it. And remember the time that it showed up in the workplace. Maybe it showed up when you had a team member that made a mistake, or maybe it showed up during a time when you were your stress levels were through the roof, and there's one small thing that went wrong, and then you just lost it or you wanted to lose it but you couldn't lose it. So really going back to those times, and if you are in some form of in a dark place right now, in your business or leadership, there is likely some anger in there for you to work with. So the 5 reasons that anger shows up. Number 1 reason, and this is not in any kind of order of importance. And like number 1 is not as important as say number 5. They're just all reasons why anger would show up. So the first reason that anger shows up is typically to do with boundaries. So either some boundaries are breached, or someone was not honoring your boundaries, or someone did something that crossed your boundaries that you weren't aware that there was a boundary there in the first place. So boundaries, and it can be such a healthy inquiry for you if it is resonating for you that, oh, you know what, I'm angry because I had this boundary, then to really recognize it for what it is and what it's telling you, and make the appropriate action to create that boundary, or have a conversation with the other person expressing the boundary, and just being able to see how the anger can point to where you may not be aware something is a boundary for you. Speaking of anger, it's getting really warm in my vehicle. I can see why people do these videos in their car. It's probably the only place you get some privacy when you're on the road. Okay, so boundaries. So first and foremost, just ask yourself, what boundary is not being honored, right? And see what comes up for you as an answer. The second reason anger comes up is when a need is not being met. So underneath our anger is usually something that we really needed, but the other person or the external world didn't fulfill it. So a classic example in business is, let's say, you have a team member, or you've got an employee who made a mistake, somehow didn't do what they're supposed to do in the way that you wanted them to do, then anger would flare up for you, and that's like completely normal. And then you want to ask yourself, what did you need from them that they're not fulfilling, right? So you don't have to make it so dramatic, right, that you start to point fingers, and anger, when unexamined and unexpressed, can come out in really funny ways as well. It can come up in passive aggressive ways. But really, if you just took a moment and ask yourself, so what need was not met in that situation, you'll likely get your answer, right? A third reason that anger shows up is usually because it's underneath is there's some fear. Underneath anger is sometimes a fear, and this is one of the more harder ones to pinpoint, because anger really, I find in my experience and from all my wonderful teachers that have taught me about navigating emotions, especially negative or darker emotions, is that anger can be a mask for something deeper. And in our society, it's usually acceptable to express anger than other types of negative emotion. Anger is kind of like the big brother of emotions, like it's like people get it, and it's very overt. It shows up in our media and generally in society, like people, like it's acceptable to say I'm pissed off, but it's not so acceptable to say that I'm hurt or that I'm afraid, right? Which actually brings me to my fourth reason, and that is anger typically also is masking some form of hurt and some form of sadness, that if you just look underneath that, you will likely find that. And it's so, it's not part of course, to be talking about hurt and sadness in the workplace, but I believe we should be talking about it just as much as we talk about, things like mindfulness, and, even now it's really on vogue, and I believe it's needed. So, it's on vogue to talk about how to create love cultures. Well, as part of that, I feel like it's so crucial to also look at, well, how do we create conscious cultures, right? And consciousness is not just about positivity and love and, cheerleading all the time. Like, there are other parts of the human experience that also show up in the workplace, in our businesses, in the way we interact with our clients, suppliers, our partners. All these very human emotions need to be acknowledged as well, right? So when you are, let's say, I had a client who, this is actually what I wanted to share, as promised from last week. I had a client, I still remember him, who had experienced a pretty brutal lockout from his own company because of his ex-business partner making a bad decision, and that had a huge domino effect on their profit margins, and really affected the bottom line, and really affected his ability to take home a salary from their company. And it's just